What's
All
up,
right,
guys?
we are recording. What's
Awesome.
going on, Bodini?
Not too much. Welcome, everybody. So, speaking of recording this call, it sounds like I may not have recorded the call last week properly. So, um, that's why nobody got a replay email this past week. But um, we hopefully will remedy that and get that topic out from last week. We're going to kind of recap a little bit this week, but just wanted to let people know that's why that didn't come out earlier this week, because I didn't have my IT guy Rhino on the line with me. So
If you call me your IT guy one more time, I will jump through this this phone or this computer, whatever this. See, I don't even know the difference between a computer and a phone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's my fault for going to Florida.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. Ryan's son won a big time championship, national championship soccer tournament this weekend.
Yeah,
So
it
congrats to
was
Murph.
a ton of fun, man. I always hate shootouts, but when you win, it's pretty exciting.
They're way cooler that way.
Yeah, like everything else.
Yeah. Hey, so I think I figured out a name for this call, our Q&A calls.
Better than live coaching call. That's got a lot of
Yeah, I think this is
personality.
the crew and a call.
Oh,
Huh?
I like your wordplay.
What do you think? Crew and a.
Crew and A.
So put that on the whiteboard. Let it simmer.
I'm gonna write it down here.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I think before we kind of get into our talking points today, I think we got to talk a little bit about the live golf stuff, right? I think some big news just came out with Dustin Johnson heading over there. Obviously, the field is not super stellar, but just a few names on there that might have surprised some. I was really surprised by Taylor Gooch, kind of an up and coming guy that is now heading overseas. And from what I heard, I haven't read a whole lot about it, but I have a client who kind of keeps me in the mix. And he was saying that apparently like Dustin Johnson is out. Anybody there out of anything PGA related. So obviously this week they're not in. Dustin Johnson is not allowed to be on future Ryder Cup teams. Is that what you've heard?
Cow. Yeah, I heard it's if you are playing around with the enemy, you're done.
Yeah.
Which that's for a young up and comer, you're really limiting yourself. Because let's say he's not good enough to be on that tour. He can't drop to the Corn Ferry and work out the bugs or anything. He's just, I guess you can go on European tour, I suppose. So he's not totally out of options, but
no. And I think that he's probably in the top 10 of the field over there
for now. But yeah,
for now. But yeah, who knows where this thing goes and what happens. Obviously, he'll make a boatload of money in the short term. And I heard rumors that Dustin Johnson got a very large contract fee outside of anything that he earns over there. So I would assume that's the same for some of these other guys too, that they got paid some, behind the scenes money just to show up, which is kind of what we all expected. But
yeah, I mean, if you recall, a couple months ago, there was rumor that DeChambeau, they were going to give him $125 million.
I heard 150 for Dustin Johnson.
For DJ, I was going to say he's a bigger name.
This could be totally hearsay. So I haven't checked any sources on this except for Chris in the gym. So we'll put all our stock in Chris. He's usually pretty accurate though. But no, I would be very interested to hear, some of the other golfers' take on this. I'd love to hear Taylor Gooch talk about, his decision. And I'm really curious about, there were two amateurs on the list as well. The kid that just won the U.S. Amateur this past year, and then I forget who the other kid was, what his name was. But and it looked like, they had amateur next to their name. I assume they are turning pro next week.
Seems like a pretty safe assumption
to go make a boatload of money. But talk about limiting your future possibilities with the PGA Tour and Corn Ferry Tour and all that stuff.
It's so weird. It's like if you grew up in like England and then decided to go play in the Bundesliga and they said, well, if you go there, you can't come back to the VPL. That's hard.
Yeah.
I like to have a few bucks in my pocket too, but I don't know. To each his own, I suppose. DJ kind of made his point already on the PGA Tour, so for all we know, he might be part owner of this thing.
I just think it says a lot about Dustin Johnson, the fact that he came out, what was it, a month or two ago, and pledged his allegiance to the PGA Tour, basically saying, I'm, when Phil came out and rumors about Bryson were circling, and Dustin Johnson was one of the guys that said, nope, I'm sticking with the PGA Tour. And then here we go, as soon as it's go time. I don't know. That just slipped him several notches in my book, just from a character and integrity standpoint.
Right. Yeah. Don't say anything in the first place.
Yeah.
And
Right.
How much money does a fella need?
I know.
I think he's.
Oh, and by the way,
right.
he's married into the Gretzky family too, so I think they're just fine. Not too worried about his kiddos.
No, he'll be good. Yeah, that's funny. I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole with Phil and his gambling. Legendary stories.
Oh, are you reading the book?
I've just been going down some YouTube videos. Like John Daly has some good stories.
Oh, yeah.
What's his face? The CBS guy with the stash who just left last year.
McCord?
Yes, thank you. Good Lord. He has some pretty good Phil stories.
Okay.
Which, if you lost our money gambling, absolutely go over to Saudi Arabia and make what you can.
A lot of people say that was the impetus of the whole thing for him. But I digress.
Gambling.
I digress. What else we got going on?
I want to have the Memorials this weekend.
Memorials this weekend. Yep, that's always a fun one to watch.
Yeah, super cool course. I know a bunch of buddies who have played up there. You've never gotten up there, have you?
No, same guy, Chris, that I was just talking about. He was just up there a week and a half ago. He goes up there a couple times a year and just tells me how hard of course it is, and just how incredible the place is too. Just the whole experience, and knowing that that's Jack's place, and they've seen Jack up in the restaurant there, and just says it's pretty incredible. But yeah, always a great tournament.
Nice. Also, next week I'm going to taking the family up to Beaver Creek, Vail, Colorado.
Oh, nice.
So my driving distance will be way high for a week.
There we go. Yeah, I've got the big member guest next week in Kansas City as well. And Marina said, yeah, the U.S. Women's Open is this weekend. That's in North Carolina, right? I think Pine Needles is where that is. I haven't checked any scores on that. I don't know who is Annika playing in that this year. She is. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So
the Tiger Woods of the LPGA.
Man, she is unbelievable. So yeah, all kinds of good stuff going on. I'm curious also, back to the Live Golf thing. I don't know when they have it, but I know that there's kind of like a draft that happens before the first event, because they're instilling this some sort of team related. I want to say it's almost like Formula One style, where they have different teams, and then they draft players onto each of these teams. And so there's team money, and then there's also individual money. So the purse is $25 million for each event. 5 million of that, I believe, goes to the end of the year for the teams, is split up amongst the teams. So a total of $40 million at the end of the year. But then $20 million per event is split up amongst 48 guys with no cut.
Okay, now it's starting to become clear, because this week the Memorial's a $12 million purse
12
amongst
100 and something guys, where 70 guys will make the cut and make money. So do the math on that.
Offer you can't refuse.
Right. So
good Lord. Oh, let me let Joni in here. Don't leave her. And I see Mr. Jim Class is on the call too. Since we're talking about success today, we'll have to put him on the spot for a minute.
Yeah, Jim, if you don't mind, let's pull you on and have you talk about the email that you sent us, because Jim is our most recent forged 18 strong crew member.
Yes, sir.
There he is.
Yeah, maybe one of your older ones too. I don't know.
Maybe. But tell us a little bit about the experience, Jim. I know you listed out a couple things in your email to us.
Yeah.
But overall, just kind of what were some of the big bullet points and lessons that you got out of it?
Well, one of them was the consistency of doing something every day. That was, you look at it and you say 40 days, that's not a problem. And then you get into it and you run into little distractions. And on day 8 and 9, well, on day 8, we had watched our 2 youngest grandchildren, and when they left, within an hour of it, I took on their stomach virus that they had. So I still had to do my 40-minute activity that day. So I forced myself to walk our trail with a plastic bag along the way, just
Oh,
in
man.
case. And then a couple other scheduling issues where I got interrupted during the day with other things. And now it's 9 o'clock at night. It's dark. We live in an area where there's deer running through the neighborhood at night. So you got to be careful. So I'm out in a cul-de-sac walking with a flashing light, probably causing my other neighbors to say, "What's going on? Call the police." You know?
Right.
Jim's finally lost it.
Yeah. So I just kept, moving along. And what I would learn to do was to check every activity after I completed it. And a couple times I got towards the end of the day and realized, whoops, I missed one, meditation. And then on day 39, I took a shower and everything, got out, got dressed and everything. And I told my wife, I said, "I think I missed the cold shower." And she said, "Well, you would have known that after all this time." And I said, "Well, I'm taking another one just in case." So I did. And it was like 10 o'clock at night, and so it was really good, good discipline. I'm also in a study program where I'm in the US studying for a securities license. And so that helped me with my motivation with that and setting aside blocks of time, So down here, it's getting very hot in the afternoon. So last week I played 9 holes at 7 o'clock in the morning and finished at 9:10 and showered and studied and then went to a business meeting. And I mean, everything was really good, from that perspective. But I think the content is very good because the one thing I found awkward at first was the swinging the golf club with the non-dominant hand. And
That's weird.
it's really weird at first. But over time, I realized I was getting better at it. And it really helped the mobility of my dominant hand, I believe, from that perspective. So, and then staying off sweets and the beer, it was interesting. And then we go out with a lot of couples and 3 weeks in a row, I declined having some wine or beer at a dinner with the couples dinner. So finally one of them said, "What is going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm in this program called 18 Strong. And now all 3 guys, they want to find out about it." And I said, "Well, I have to see if I can get you in." Yeah. So they want to make sure that I finish the program. So now I can do that. So
I
I would
love
say you really created something really good. And what some of you all don't know is that a year ago, I went under what was considered major heart surgery. I had a aortic valve replaced and it went very smoothly and everything. And I had to build up, getting back in shape. So this came in a very timely end. And we did this at the end of our cardiac. My wife had some issues too. So we were both going to cardiac rehab together and we were called the cute cardiac couple. And so I used the 45-minute cardiac rehab for my 45-minute activity.
Perfect.
Can't miss it.
So I'm here working away at it. So it's a great program. You guys have developed something really neat. And I think a lot of people don't realize what you've created. And having a few years of your senior, I would say that you're onto something very big that you're developing methodically that could be duplicatable and expanded in other markets, with people of like mind, like yourself as a physical therapist and what Ryan's done with the marketing. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I was on one of your very first infomercials you did a couple of years ago. I got invited and it was supposed to be a 1-hour thing where you guys were talking about all the different services and for $15.99, this is this and this is that. And I was going through all this cardiac stuff at the time. And I said, I don't know if I can do this for 8 weeks right in a row right now, but it was well done. I'm really glad to see how you all progressed.
Well, let me ask you this, Jim.
Yeah, I appreciate that's great. I really appreciate it. Those kind of make me squirm a little, those old webinars that we did for a while.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it's a little too pitchy for us, but we've evolved to
you got to try different things, see what works.
No, we've
So,
tried it all, man.
Jim, let me ask you this regarding the Forge. What would you
Yeah.
say was the biggest challenge for you throughout the 40 days?
The biggest one was staying on it. I mean, each day another item might be more an irritant. Let's say for the meditation, one time doing that, but just being consistent and doing that. So I wouldn't say there was one of those activities that was a real bothersome. I remember when you guys were talking about the cold shower, and so I started that, and that's one activity I have to say I counted out loud the seconds, to make sure I got through it. But the other thing is about that is that we live in the Western Hemisphere where we have that choice of cold or hot showers, and so many people live without it, and they just love to have any type of shower.
Mhm.
So I use that as a good discipline from that perspective.
Oh, heck yeah. That's excellent. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such a profound statement that, taking that perspective of, I mean, really the whole thing from the day that we started it, we said, like, this is really just a game that you're playing with yourself, and
Right.
it's tricking yourself into the fact that this is really important. And if you treat it as being really important, it really does create some very important changes and habits, and makes you take perspectives like that. And, that's why I believe that until you do it and until you stick through it all the way, because somebody that starts and they kind of do it, they'll think like, oh, I get the point, but you don't really get the point. And this goes for everything until you actually go through and do the work. Because like you said, you can look at it and say, oh, 7 little things I got to do every day for 40 days, no big deal. But then life throws you a curveball and something happens, and it's like, no, you still have to be able to figure out how to get it done. You can't just wash it away. So, those little details, it's like the old saying, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And if you can make this important, it then really becomes important and really starts to drill down those little habits. And ultimately, that's what we all are working on improving, is building better habits so we can create the body that we want, the life that we want, the game that we want, all of those things. So it pertains to golf, it pertains to fitness, it pertains to health, all of those things.
I agree with you. And the Ryan, the way you designed that checklist to fit on one page was very helpful, because it was easy to check off. And then if you're halfway through it, you're looking at, okay, I got 23 more days to go, and just take it one day at a time. And I put a lot of effort into each activity and try to focus on that activity, like the breathing exercise and then the swings. I think we had the gentleman on a couple weeks ago that said, take a swing, wait 2 minutes, think about what you did, do it again. And that's because otherwise it's too easy to just get out in the backyard and swing. Now, one thing I was cautioned about by my wife was not to do the swings in the house. And there were a couple of times when I almost lost the club and it went through the TV, and that wasn't going to be a good situation.
There's the end of his forge right there.
Yeah, there goes my forge.
Yep.
So anyhow, thanks so very much for what you guys done with that. I look forward.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Absolutely.
Back 9. Yeah.
Absolutely. The checklist, like even just printing it out and having it on, I put it on my nightstand, having the calendar to check off. It really is. Like you said, you get to the end of the night and you realize, oh crap, I did forget something.
Yeah, right.
And the worst one is when you forget the cold shower and you got to do it late at night. That was, that happened to me one time and one time only.
That's right. Same here.
Yeah.
So, encourage you all to do it. So,
Awesome.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for what you all done.
For sure. All right, so this kind of really leads into what I wanted to talk about today, kind of an add-on to what we talked about in our last call, which we kind of deemed the great separator. What are the things that separate the people that succeed in something like the Forge or a workout program or a golf training program, or maybe you're training your mental game, whatever it is. What are the things that separate those people? And so we went through an exercise last week that I'm just going to recap here real quick, that really was adapted from a book by the title Business Made Simple by Donald Miller. And it was creating your own guiding principles for what you want to achieve and what you want to create. So whatever your mission is at the time. And those, the way that you create those is really through 5 basic steps. And we've been talking about it on our emails this week. We really recapped it last week. The first one is just creating your basic mission statement. What is it that you want to achieve? When do you want to achieve it by? And why do you want to achieve it? The second was going through your key characteristics, which is really, thinking about what are the 3, and we limit it to 3 just to keep things simple. What are the 3 things that you want to embody on a daily basis? So the way I look at it is kind of in the attitudes that you want to bring to the table. Who's the person that you want to show up as? Is it, maybe you have a very positive attitude. Maybe you have a competitive mindset. And we gave some different examples. We talked about Ryan's son Murphy and their soccer team and the attitude that they showed up with over the course of the weekend. The key characteristics that team brought to the table. Then to get a little more into the tactical, the third step is creating then 3 critical tasks, 3 daily tasks that you can achieve and check off every day, like we did in the Forge. And we talked about this in today's email about, creating 3 things that you can do on a daily basis that you can say, yes, I did it. No, I didn't do it. But making sure that those are 3 things that are really kind of putting into action even more things that are going to help you get closer to your goal. So what are the big dominoes that you're going to knock down that will just continue to spark better changes? Jim just mentioned when he was doing the Forge, it even helped him structure his time a little bit better to study, put together the time and set it aside to go and study for the test that he's going to have to take. And I find that to be very true, that the busier I get, the more things I have to cram into my schedule, the more structured I force myself to become. And Ryan and I have talked about this for years, that
For sure.
the busier we are, the more productive we are. I can remember back in college when you have all this time on your hands and you'll spend 6 hours doing nothing and all of a sudden the day flies by. But when I had a ton of exams and projects and soccer and all of the different tasks that had to be completed, that then became a much more structured schedule. And even though it seems kind of burdensome, you feel so much more productive. And really, I felt much more on task throughout those times. Then go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was gonna say 100%. Schedule 1 thing a day or 10 things a day, and just that one thing that's part of those 10 will be done way better with the 9 other things than just doing the one thing.
Yeah, what's the term for that? It's like the paradox of something where however much time you're given, you'll take that much time. So if you're given 2 days to do a project or 2 weeks to do a project, it'll take you whatever time you're allotted. We tend to string things out, and what's the other one? Idle hands is the devil's work or something like that, where like
the idle mind is the devil's playground. Right.
You don't have anything to do. You just kind of just goof off and never get anything done. So that's where having those 3 critical tasks, having them written down and being able to check them off so you can see that is a big deal. The 4th piece was just really developing what your story is around this mission, around this goal. And I look at it as being important for 2 different reasons. Having a story to tell yourself on those days when you're struggling a little bit. So maybe there's a temptation that arises. Maybe you get super busy. Maybe you just are kind of down in the dumps and not feeling like completing whatever your task is for the day. But having that story to tell yourself of why am I even doing this? And maybe sometimes even more importantly is when somebody asks you, so like when Jim's at dinner and these guys are asking him why he's not drinking, being able to tell the story of why he's doing it, not necessarily just, oh, well, I'm doing this thing, but why are you doing the thing? Because then that opens up a conversation to, first of all, have them engage and help you out with that challenge, or maybe even to help that person. Maybe that person is struggling with something and it's a conversation that now starts them asking more questions about it, wondering if it's something that's good for them. And then maybe you're able to help that person. So having that story kind of enlists other people into your story, but also helps to pull you along on those days that where you can tell yourself, hey, this is why I'm doing this, even though you don't feel like it. And that's really going to kind of flow into our theme for today. And then the fifth piece of creating your own guiding principles was developing what's the ultimate, like, bigger theme. Many people would probably call this your why. Why are you doing this? What are the stakes of why you're enlisting in the forge, or why are you telling yourself you need to go practice your short game every single day? Because it's really easy to say, it's not really that important. I don't really want to win that member guest all that much, or I don't really want to be the club champion. But there was a day when you set that goal when you really did want to win the member guest or the club championship, and it was really important to you in that moment. And then for some reason you got derailed a little bit. So to be able to tell yourself why is that important to yourself is really, really important. Kind of goes along with your story a little bit, but this is kind of the deeper one. We even talked about the 7 steps of why, if you remember that exercise, Rhino, from Dean Graziosi.
Oh yeah, keep going deeper and deeper and
keep
deeper.
going, like, why are you doing this? And then ask yourself that question 7 times, and that will get you way closer to the real answer. So it's not necessarily, I want to be the greatest golfer in my club, and I want to walk around the club in my powder blue jacket. It's way deeper than that, of probably improving yourself, proving to yourself that you can work hard and achieve and move beyond that. So those are the 5 things that Donald Miller really lays out. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, it's funny when you in a gym, we were talking about drinking beers, and like when you're in shape, it's hard to drink beers. I know, Bodine, you've done a great job of kind of limiting yourself. So if I get to beer 3 or 4 so we have a wedding tomorrow for our cousin, which seems like happens every other week these days.
Yeah, right.
So I'll get to like beer 3 or 4. It's like, you know what? How much do I really want to weigh? 165 pounds. And if you don't have like a why, it's like, oh, screw it, I'm going for it.
Yeah,
and that's it. That helps me.
It's really easy to flip that switch, or maybe turn the switch off in that situation. Right. Like, again, I told myself I wanted this, but it's not that big of a deal if I'm 170 or 175, or like,
who am I trying to impress?
Exactly. And so we get into all these games of telling ourselves, it's that I like to call it the tale of 2 golfers. You've got the golfer that's you, like the best version of you, that you want to do all the right things. You want to be in shape. You want to play great golf. You want to be a good dad. It's all the good things. And then you've got that little devil on your shoulder that's the other golfer that's like, oh, come on, let's just have a little bit more fun. Who are you trying to impress? And it's when you get in those little conversations with yourself, you got to be able to shut that one off. And that's where these tactics really come into play, is if you're conscious of doing these things on a regular basis and you keep it in the forefront of your awareness, that's when you're able to kind of defeat golfer number 2 in that situation. So we talked about last week the 3 things, and I know that a lot of you were on this call last week, and so I'll make this recap pretty quick here. But 3 add-ons that Ryan and I talk about a lot here, that I wanted to add to the guiding principles, and that was just creating some sort of proof to yourself that you're achieving what you want to achieve. One of those is having that list, like having that checklist to show, like, yeah, I'm on track. And you can physically and literally see that you've got a streak going. That proves to you that you're doing the right things. And, many times you look at that and you're like, I don't want to break that streak. And so that's huge. That's huge right there. The second thing is finding small examples of you exhibiting things that are the person or the golfer that you want to be. So, the time that you do turn down the drink at dinner, make a mental note of that, or literally write it down in a journal or a notebook. And so finding those little pieces of proof and writing it down and saying, yeah, that's a little glimpse of the guy or girl that I'm trying to be on a regular basis. That maybe is a decision that I wouldn't have made a week ago, 2 weeks ago, to not have that 4th beer, or not have a beer, or not have that cheesecake, or whatever it is. Right. Or let's talk golf, to not, pull out the driver when really I should be hitting a hybrid and just, taking the smart shot, or just punch out of the trees and instead of trying to thread through the needle, making those smarter decisions. So giving yourself proof that you're on the right track. The next add-on would be having accountability. Accountability can be very simple. Tell somebody else what you're doing and give them the freedom to call you out on it. Many times we don't do that, and we don't make that known that, hey, I want you to call me out on this. Don't pander me, and don't go along when I say I had a hard day and I just let it slip. Call me out on my BS. That's one. And the second, and I think probably even the better way, is to enlist somebody else into your story. Enlist somebody else into the journey that you're on. Somebody that is trying to do the same that you're doing, which in many respects is exactly what we're all doing here in the crew. We're all on very similar missions, all individual missions, but all very similar. Enlist somebody else that will go along the ride with you. We've talked a lot about how golf is an individual sport, but many of us grew up playing sports on teams. And when you have teammates that are running sprints with you, you have teammates that are playing in the rain with you, you have teammates that are, working their tail off, which then inspires you to work your tail off. That's way more effective than having somebody just tell you what to do or just being in on it all alone. So enlisting somebody to do it with you. That's why I really recommend, I think I did at the end of the episode of The Forge, recommend that you find somebody to do the Forge with you, because then you've got a buddy that you can rely on when you don't feel like doing your workouts, or you don't feel like doing your cold shower, or when they don't, you're the one that picks them up. And then lastly, is number 8 was having some sort of positive inputs on a regular basis. So there's the old story of I think it's the grandson that asks his grandma about success. And she says something like, son, we have 2 wolves in us, the success wolf and the failure wolf, right? And the grandson says, well, which wolf wins? And she says, the one that you feed. And so
Wow.
having some sort of constant inputs that are inspiring or that remind you of what you're trying to do. So we talked about, some of the things that I rely on are podcasts, definitely Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, having some sort of music. Music is one of those things that can change your state very quickly. I know Ryan's a huge music guy, and so I'm sure that there are songs. I can probably just say the Top Gun theme song, you throw that on, and it kind of jazzes you up and it kind of gets you in the mood to be better. You think of any montage in any movie that you've ever watched, those are strategic. They're meant to get you geared up. So if you have songs that kind of change your state, get you out of the funk that you're in and put you in a competitive mood or an inspired mood, that can be huge. The books that you read, some of our favorites, The Power of Habit, our friends Gary and Carl, the Lost Art of Golf series, all of those things. And then also being around like-minded people. I find myself very excited and inspired after this call every single week when I talk to you guys, right? So
For sure.
I went and played golf with 2 of my buddies from college last 2 weeks ago. And one of my friends, we had one of the most profound conversations that we've ever had. Typically we're fraternity brothers. We went to high school together. We've played soccer together. We've drank 1,000 beers together. And we were in a rain delay playing golf, and we just started talking about some of the stuff that we talk about on these calls. And he did the Forge. In fact, that's probably, I think that's what sparked our conversation. And it's having conversations like that allow you to again, just feed that wolf and help inspire you to be a better version. So that was a very long recap of what we talked about last week.
Worthwhile though, for sure.
Yeah. And so that leads to today's topic, which regarding the positive inputs, you all know that I'm a huge Ed Milet fan. I would say that Ed Milet has become the biggest positive input that I repeatedly go back to. Some of his early episodes where it's just him, not him interviewing somebody. It's just him talking through different concepts and different ideas. I have them saved in my podcast episodes, and I repeat them over and over. There's several interviews he's done that I repeat over and over, as well as other authors and podcasts and things like that. But just last week, he came out with his new book, and it was called The Power of One More. And so I watched, he had a huge launch event on Friday. And I wanted to talk about this for two reasons. First, if we make this into a podcast episode, more people will hear it and more people will hear of the great work that Ed's doing. And so it's just like one small little way that I can say thanks to him for everything that he has put out that I've consumed. I basically kind of consider him a mentor, even though I've only had a chance to really talk to him one time. But he did an event last week where he had an incredible line of speakers. They did an in-person event, but had a live virtual event with it to really highlight the launch of his book, The Power of One More. And he had speakers like Dean Graziosi was actually a speaker there, Andy Frisella, Eric Thomas. If you guys don't know who Eric Thomas is, you need to look up Eric Thomas. He is possibly the most dynamic speaker I've ever seen. And this speech that he gave was no different than any other that I've heard. One of the coolest things is that with him releasing this book, which I'm sure he will sell thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of books, is he decided like the day before that he was donating all of the money from the book sales to the families of the Uvalde tragedy that happened here in the United States, the school shooting in Texas. Not only that, he then was going to match whatever anybody bought. He personally was going to match to send to the families. And one of his cohorts who was a part of the event or interviewed him recently, she was matching whatever Ed paid as well. So basically they triple whatever that number is. So I haven't seen any kind of numbers, but I'm sure that they are raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not in the millions to go down
I'm
there.
sure.
Yeah.
Just as a side note, that's 90 miles west of where I live.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I mean, what
a tragedy.
What a terrible tragedy.
That's a tough one.
Yep.
And that's what he talked about was, with the launch of this book, it was hard for him to want to promote having a live event. And so he was able to turn it around as a way for him to promote was really a very selfless act where anybody buying a book could feel really good about giving to these families as well.
Yes, that's right.
But I wanted to highlight just the concept of the book. And I will put the link. In fact, his latest episode on his podcast is his opening speech it was called Max Out Live. And it was an incredible talk. So go listen to that, or we can post that in the Facebook group as well. But the concept is the power of one more, and it takes on several different connotations. The first and foremost one is through the conversation that we've been talking about, trying to achieve a goal, whether it be a big goal or a small goal, and setting some sort of mission statement for yourself, setting these guiding principles for yourself. It's one thing to have these tactics, but again, every time you set out on something that's going to be a bit of a challenging journey, you're going to run up against roadblocks, right? You're going to run up against these stumbling areas where either you get confused or you run into a challenge that is preventing you from achieving maybe one of the daily tasks, or you just don't feel like it. And the power of one more is simply looking at how important it is to just focus on that one more step that you need to take. So 40-day forge, right? It's 40 days. At first, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal. And let's take my 40-day forge journey, for example. So day 20, I screwed up, right? So it ended up being 60 days. So around day 30, day 4, or, my original day 30, day 40, it starts to get like, why am I doing this? And oh my gosh, I got to start all over. And this is 40 days away. The power of one more is, no, I just got to do this one more day. And then tomorrow I'll make a decision if I'm going to keep going. And then you get to the next day. I don't have to go another 40 days. I just have to do one more. Right. And Ed tells a great story about his dad and struggling with alcohol, and how, that's really how many Alcoholics deal with sobriety. It's not, I have to be sober for the rest of my life. I just got to be sober for one more day. Right. And so anytime we come up against these struggles, no matter what it is, you know, we have golf struggles, we have family struggles, we have business struggles, we have fitness struggles. It's really easy for us to use the examples of fitness and nutrition, but expand those out into any other aspect of life. So you look at cheating on your diet. You know, you get home from work and you've had a rough day and there's nothing in the house to eat except for that bag of chips that's been calling your name all week long, right? It's like, let me just not eat those chips for one more night. And then you wake up the next morning, and what happens the next morning when you wake up? I'm literally picturing myself walking down the steps the next morning being like, I'm so glad I didn't eat those chips last night. I'm so glad I didn't have that one more drink last night. I'm so glad I didn't have, you know, you insert whatever it is, your vice or whatever struggle it is. I'm so glad I didn't do that just one more time, because now I'm starting my day fresh and I'm back to, you know, what I like to call morning Jeff versus night Jeff. And you think so much more clearly, right? At the end of the day, you're running out of your energy tank is running out. Your decision tank is running out. I think James Clear talks about that in Atomic Habits. Like by the end of the day, you know, you have only so many decisions that you really can make before you start making bad decisions. And so if you're able to put off just that one decision one more time, you're going to be so much more grateful the next day. I listened to an episode of a podcast with a gentleman by the name of, I believe his name is James Lawrence, and they call him the Iron Cowboy. And he did, maybe 5 years ago, he did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 different states.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
So not only is it insane on the physical nature of your body to do 50 Ironmans in 50 days, but think about the logistics of doing it in 50 states as well. It's just bananas. So then in a more recent podcast episode he was on, and he basically decided he wanted to one up what he did last time. And he did it to raise money. I don't remember the cause, but then he did 100 Ironmans in 100 days.
Good Lord.
Now he did them all in the same location, but regardless, he did them all in a row 100 times. Now he had a team with him, and he said there were times when I was running on the track or I'd be pedaling my bike and I would fall asleep and start to fall over, and the team would grab him and they would slowly walk him, and then he'd start running again or biking again or whatever. And I'll never forget in that episode, in fact, Ed might have interviewed him at some point, because I think they talked about this concept of one more. And he said, the only thought I had was not, oh shit, I have 90 more of these to go. His only thought was, I just need to take one more step, and then I got to take the next step. And he just kept thinking that through every single iteration of the Ironman process, the run, the bike, the swim, for 100 days straight. His, you know, at that point, your body is obliterated. Like his feet were bleeding by day 4, you know, blisters, stress fractures. It's no longer a physical battle, because that's all to shit. It's now a mental battle. And that's the concept that got him through 100 days of 100 Ironmans. Was one more step. You just got to take one more step. Don't quit for one more step. And so to put things into perspective, whatever our goals are, physical, mental, for me, I've been working a lot lately on my meditative stuff, you know, trying to really meditate, which is very, very difficult for me to get my brain to settle down for that long, and to not just be bombarded with thoughts. And I'm doing this for many reasons. But in the short term, I'm going to try to use this for this member guest next week as a way to just kind of mentally prepare. I haven't had a chance to play a lot of golf, and I figured, well, if I can't physically prepare, one way to prepare is to mentally prepare, be able to at least stay present and get into each shot, right? And so to sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the bombardment of thoughts that come in is insane.
Mhm.
But everything that I'm learning is you have to just tell yourself, okay, that was one thought, no big deal, wipe it away, give it another try. And then you just try to sit with a clear mind until another thought comes in. You see that thought, you wipe it away and push away. I've actually in my head started calling this the lift, clean, in place method. So when
Lift, clean, in place. Oh,
lift, clean, in place, just like playing
right.
a round of golf, like all of a sudden I'm sitting there. I might be in the fairway, but all the junk gets stuck on me. I have to lift it up, I have to clean it off and place myself in a clear train of thought again. And so, but it's that whole idea of it's really easy to give up and say, I'm just no good at this, but I'm going to do it again tomorrow. That is one of my 3 critical tasks on my list right now, is doing my meditation every single day. And I'm not good at it, but the only way to get better is to go through that piece. And all I'm telling myself is, all right, I'm just going to do it tomorrow. Just make sure I do it tomorrow. And that was really inspired by, hearing Ed talk about the power of one more. And it's just, don't quit. Just don't quit today. You can quit tomorrow, but don't quit today.
Right. It's like every tiki bar you've been to, it's free beer tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
All
Exactly.
about,
Yes.
don't worry about this, worry about
Yeah.
that. So it's basically Ed's, and I didn't, this is the first I'm hearing about this too. He's really just kind of, not necessarily redefined or just better articulated how to eat an elephant one bite at a time type situation.
Yeah.
How do you run a marathon?
One step
One
at a time.
step at a time. Exactly.
And so I would highly encourage all of you to go and listen to his most recent episode. I think it's still open. I'll put the link in the Facebook group of where they might even have the replay up. And I don't know how long they'll leave that up of the whole event, like all 8 hours. So, Rob Dyrdek was also a speaker.
That guy is a machine.
Yeah, he's incredible. But I would highly encourage you to go watch his keynote, which is the first speech that he gives, and then also the end to it, because he relays it in so many different ways and relates this concept of really, like, one that really hit home for me was when he was talking about, well, first of all, the Uvalde tragedy, but even just as a father, walking out the door and telling your kid that you love him one more time. Because again, you never know when is the last time you're going to have that opportunity. Or just so many different applications. When you're in the gym, just do one more rep. That's what separates some of the greatest people from the average, is they don't just do the minimum, they do one more. If you're, he talks about business, if you're making sales calls, do one more call. All of those things. So, like, literally, sometimes it's getting yourself into that crazy mindset of challenging yourself constantly. When you're out for a walk, I'm going to walk for 40 minutes. Well, no, maybe I'm going to go one more lap, or, I'm doing sprints. So I'm going to do one more sprint. Just yesterday, it's funny when you start to get in this mindset, because then you just kind of become a crazy person where you're constantly challenging yourself. And it's kind of like, oh, you're going to challenge me? Well, I'm going to prove you right, or I'm going to prove you wrong. Right. And so I was doing the sled just back and forth. I had a short period of time for my workout yesterday. And so I just loaded up the sled and was pushing it one way and dragging it the other way, and told myself I'd go for 15 minutes. And then I was like, what would Ed Milet do? He'd go another minute, so you get into this mindset. But I would venture to say that if you talk to a guy like a Justin Thomas, you talk to a guy like a Max Homa, who I know is just a workhorse. Those are the guys that are going to stick it out on the range for one more hour, maybe one more bucket of balls. And no, let's go play one more hole, not selling yourself short and putting in that extra little effort that, as Jim said at the very beginning of our call, doing it all consistently, if you do one more every single day consistently, that first of all, in a year, that's 365 times you did it more than you would have. I have a client of mine. We probably put this in an email a while back. His name's Greg, and he's kind of a rock star client of mine. He's 74 years old now. But if we're doing 4 sets of something, on the 4th set, he always does 2 more reps of whatever we're doing. So if we're doing 10 reps, he gives me 12. And we calculated, we've been working together for over 5 years. We calculated that he's done over 5,000 extra reps in the time that we've been working together.
That's
And
awesome.
he's 74 years old. He hits it as far as his buddies that are 55. He's playing the same tees as these guys. He's out walking them on the golf course. He's incredible. But it's just that little competitive mentality of, and he literally will like look me in the eye and like, you don't think I can get 2 more, do you? And then I'll crank out the 2 more. And it's just a fun little game that we play, and sometimes just setting up those silly little games in your head are the things that end up setting you apart from the, well, first of all, the other people, but also the person that you would be if you didn't do
Right.
those extra reps. So
Yeah, really. Who
Yeah.
cares
I
about the
took-
other people?
Yeah, I took it in smaller increments. I said, 1 more second in this.
in the
Cold
shower.
shower.
Right.
That's true. I mean, that feels like a minute sometimes when you're
Yeah.
not feeling it that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So so let me guess, Greg is a pretty successful human being in business and
Yes.
the rest.
Yes. Greg has done well for himself. In fact, Greg is the one that told me he would give me $1 million if I could put him in a time machine and we could meet 20 years ago and we could have started our exercise program 20 years ago.
That's
So
right.
still working on that flex capacitor to get that
Took that $1 million
taken
bucks.
care of, to get that $1 million. Yep.
That's
yeah.
probably a safe bet if you want to make $1 million to build a time machine.
Yeah. Pretty sure.
That's pretty good.
Pretty
And we've done that math before. Like if you get 1% better every day, it's kind of an abstract thing. At the end of the year, you're 37 times better than when you started.
Yeah, exactly. Compounding.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I guess you're getting a commission for this Ed Milet thing because I'm jacked up for it now.
Well, you got a book coming. I bought you a book.
Excellent.
Yep. So,
I'm in
in fact, I did. I went and I bought. So he's got different bundles, and I bought some that I'm going to give to some of the people that I know will appreciate them and read them. But yeah, by all means, if any of you guys have ever listened to Ed's stuff or you listen to him on our show, yeah, he's just incredible. The work he's doing, and he's reaching millions and millions of people. So he doesn't need our promotion here on the podcast, but I'm happy to promote anything that I can that has Ed's name on it. So
Has he ever been on Joe Rogan?
I
It's kinda-
don't believe so.
Yeah, like combining 2 of our favorite podcasts.
Yeah, that would be huge. I wouldn't doubt if that's not on his list of people to get on his show. And then obviously, him getting on Joe's show.
Yeah, that would be something else. And now that you say that, I hear about all these things. Like David Goggins did a 100-mile marathon on a track, which I cannot think of a worst possible thing to do. That's one step in front of the other
Yeah,
type
That's
stuff.
that's a crazy story. If you guys haven't read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, that's another one to put on your list. In some pieces, it's a tough read because of his upbringing, but
Not sufficient for work, the language.
correct. And yeah, I mean, basically one main take that I got out of that book, which was pretty crazy. So David Goggins went through Navy SEALs training, went through Buds camp 3 times, I believe, because he had a stress fracture, like made it through, but medically couldn't go on. So had to go through it 3 times, which is just insane. Then I believe he became an Army Ranger, which he was, one of very few to ever become a SEAL and a Ranger. And then some other kind of like paramilitary trooper or something like that. So one of the baddest dudes on the planet. And then he gets into these ultra marathon races and ultra trail runs. So like 100-mile trail runs. And he was running this one, and the guy who was like number 1 in the world, David's slogging through, and he's in like 5th place or something like that. And this guy just runs by him, just kind of flies by him. And he said, here I am, one of literally one of the baddest dudes on the planet. And I realized that that guy just smoked me. And he's like, that's when I knew that my body can do more. Anybody's body can do more, you know, and that when we feel like we're at our max, we're really only at about 40%, and we've got another 60% in the tank.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
he's got a bit of a sadistic mindset, but again, you know, that's one of those inputs that I would say, if you're looking for a little motivation, or you know, like the example that Jim gave early on about, you know, people that are struggling way harder than us with, you know, not even having water, let alone bitching about not having warm enough water. This is one of those books where you're like, man, I'm a bit of a wuss because the things that I think are challenging, this guy would eat for breakfast, you know?
Yeah, that it puts it all in perspective there. So Randy said, have you heard Ed Mylett talk about time manipulation and 3 to 6 hour work days?
I have. I don't think I would be able to reiterate and spit it out, but yeah, he talks about that in several of his podcast episodes. I would venture to say it's probably in this book too. I just got the book yesterday in the mail, so I haven't read it, but yeah, everything that Ed has is very well thought out, very tactical, very applicable. And I would suggest going back to some of his earliest podcasts, when you see it's not him and a guest, it's him just talking about, you know, one is like the keys to maxing out. One is blissful dissatisfaction, unlocking your success code, all of these separation season. We talked about that in one of our episodes. It's all good stuff for sure.
Very good. So yes, you combine that with the the other stuff that we talked about yesterday, and you're cooking with or last week, and you're really cooking with gasoline, where you have your goal, you know why you want to do your goal, you know what you need to get to your goal, and then when it gets tough, just one more.
Yeah, it's at finding that identity of who you want to be, right? Writing it out, being really clear about that. What's the intention? What's the mission? Why are you doing it? What are the ways that you're going to show up? And ultimately, when you're writing out those characteristics, it's like, what are the characteristics I want to be at the end of this? And how do I start to embody them today? And then, yeah, when you're struggling, read that over and tell yourself, you know, I'll quit tomorrow. Just give me one more day. Right.
Yeah, that's funny. So as we're talking about these little boys and their soccer, so the big thing with them is they've got these shield values, which you see it in like corporate America all the time. Everybody has it, but how many people actually use it? You know, so these boys, they've got, you know, those 5 shield values I told you about, and then you wrote about them the other day. You know, like unity. I forget what the other ones are, but and it's real important. After every single practice, they get together and they talk about one shield value, and these are 12-year-old boys. You know, so you would think that it's this is so corny, coach, but it was so huge for these boys. And then today we got the picture of their new uniforms, and those 5 values are written on the back of all their uniforms.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah, that's how important
I should just got some. I got some little goosebumps when you said that. That's pretty great.
Yeah, for all these little kids, like you can't start early enough to like. This is the person you want. I mean, that's what sports gives us. These boys aren't. A couple of them may go pro, but they're not going pro.
Right.
But if that's what they get out of.
But they're
playing
learning
all the soccer. Good God, these boys are going to be just fine.
Yeah, they're learning some serious lessons for sure. All right, so time for Q&A. No.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any comments, quick questions at the end here? I know, again, that one went on, and we're kind of at the end of our time here. But if anybody has anything they want to wrap with, by all means.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah, you got into Tony Robbins mode. I could tell. So when reading your email, and I'm the one who loads them all into the machine that spits them out.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, Bodine's fired up today.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I really geek out about. I had a great conversation with a guy by the name of Dr. Gaston Cordoza, which we're going to have him on the podcast in the near future. And he's like a peak performance coach. He works with a lot of golfers, and we were just talking about, you know, just how all of this, golf, everything is related to so much bigger, and how 18 strong, Ryan and I, we talk about this a lot. The definition of strength that I like to use is the ability to withstand great force or pressure. So it's not always just about how much can you lift, what you bench,
how much you bench.
it's, what are the things that we can do to kind of to bulletproof ourselves mentally, physically, and in the world of golf. I see Randy's got his hand raised. How do we
I asked
unlock him?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
there he is.
There he is. What's up,
I
Randy?
just wanted to reiterate about Ed. Sean Stevenson podcast interviewed him this week about his book, and it's really fantastic.
Oh,
Great
awesome.
dude.
I would imagine we're going to be hearing Ed on all the podcasts all over the place. So all the big ones. So if there was a week for him to, or in the next couple of weeks to be on Rogan, this would probably be when it would happen. But yeah, I'll have to listen to that because obviously Sean's a good buddy of ours and love everything that he puts out too. So thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good dude. Yeah, you kind of know him pretty well, Sean Stevenson.
Yeah. He used to live in St. Louis. Now they're out in
Right.
California, but I still keep in touch with him on a fairly regular basis. In fact, I just got his book, Eat Smarter, which has been out for a while, but haven't had a chance to read that one. So I'm sure that's a good one too.
I bet.
Expect a crew and A call covering some of
Crew.
those topics too.
That's right. I have it written down. The crew I think is happening.
I think I like it.
Cool. All right. 302. Let's wrap this baby up.
All
You're
right,
starting
guys.
a 18 strong book club here.
Yeah, no
You know
kidding.
what? I
Hey,
kind of like that idea.
another marketing idea.
There we go.
We've got a million of them, Jim.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. You're
No
doing good.
shortage of ideas, Jim. No
Yep.
shortage.
I
That's for
can
sure.
tell.
The execution sometimes lacks. We have too many ideas. Need to focus a little bit.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us this week on the first official Crew and A call,
Crew
and we'll catch up with you guys next week.
See you guys.
Stay strong.